My research of the last year has led me to the conclusion that not even low Earth orbit is possible, that the International Space Station is a hoax, and all manned space travel is fake. First, though, let's have a look at the International Space Station. I want to talk about some of the anomalies I see there. For the inside of the International Space Station, there are a couple of zero-gravity tricks that they use to fake it. The first is they have a complete mock-up of the International Space Station built on the inside of an airplane, and that airplane does a bunch of rises and falls. It does a upside-down parabolic trajectory, and that simulates zero gravity. The other main way they simulate the zero gravity is with suspension in front of a blue screen, and they use that trick for extended periods of time, for longer than 45-second segments. But they can't move around as much. They can't do the acrobatic flips and rolls in the extended mode. So there's full motion mode where they can fully move around, and that's faked in a plane, and then there's suspended or extended mode where they're suspended by wires in front of a blue screen. They don't move around as much, but they can make the scene last for a longer period of time. In this scene, Chris Hadfield bends down in order to adjust something, and you can see on the back of his shirt a couple of upticks on either side where you would expect wires to come in on either side of that harness in order to support it. Of course, they've computer graphicked out the supporting wires. You can't actually see them, but what you can see is a very slight discoloration where it's slightly lighter and then it goes slightly darker. And that's strange. That shows a couple of things. First of all, it shows that this isn't live from space. They're often portraying that this is live. Of course, these things are fully choreographed and edited in advance to make sure that there's nothing too obvious that you can see that gives away that this is a suspension in front of a blue screen hoax. The other thing it shows is that this is not raw footage coming to us. This is edited stuff. This is supposed to be a legitimate space program. This is supposed to be the International Space Station, and we should be able to see whatever's going on. But they edit things because the whole thing is edited. In one extended mode scene, Chris Hadfield on the right is going back. He's going back, and then he just stops. That's an odd motion. You would expect if this was true zero gravity that you have to support yourself, you have to stop yourself on both the top and the bottom of your body as you're drifting back. If you just stop yourself with your feet, then your head will rotate backwards. Conversely, if you just hang on at the top with your hands, then your feet will still keep moving. You have to support yourself at both the top and the bottom of your body. But his hands, Chris Hadfield's hands, aren't touching anything. He just goes back and then he stops. And that's odd. You can see a sort of a harness sticking through the t-shirt of Chris Hadfield. It's a harness that's around the waist. That's how they're supported. Also notice that Chris Hadfield has the habit of bringing his knees up. That's because his stomach muscles aren't as strong. He doesn't have as much midriff strength as some of the others who are able to elongate their body and make the hoax look a bit more realistic. He's constantly bringing his knees up because he's not as strong as the others. Occasionally, though, the others bring their knees up too. Notice that in the extended scenes, which seems to be done in front of a blue screen, like if you have a look at this guy going back towards the screen, there's some strange shadows there, look like they're CGI'd in. Using computer graphics, they edit out the supporting wires and edit in these rotating floating objects. They always seem very concerned with the object. Chris Hadfield looks at it very closely. You don't want the object getting too far out of control, because if it starts bouncing off the cabin in a weird way or goes back to the blue screen, it could ruin the whole illusion. They also don't bounce those oranges off the walls. I'd like to see them get a tennis ball and throw it around really hard and fast. And I'd like to see them do-si-do each other really quickly, which they can't do, or they'd get all their wires tangled up. The extended mode is much quieter than the full motion mode. In full motion mode, you can actually hear the sound of the jet engines, the engines of the airplane. in every single scene of full motion mode, in every segment of the International Space Station, you can hear this loud sound, the sound of the jet engines. You could argue that it's the air conditioning system. Not even an office air conditioner is that loud. And why is there a loud sound in every segment of the International Space Station? That's because no matter how soundproof you make it, you can't filter out all of the sound of the jet engines. An airplane is just too noisy. You can put noise-cancelling headphones on when you're on a plane, and that doesn't stop the sound from getting through. It muffles it. They also use microphones that don't pick up very far away. If you have a look at this scene here, you can see that when the microphone's in the middle, pointing towards the guy in the middle, you can't hear the sound of jet engines as much, but when the microphone goes to the guy on the side, you can hear the sound of jet engines a bit more. So you can't truly soundproof the inside of the airplane where they fake full motion mode. You can see in this scene from the recent National Geographic documentary Live from Space, Koichi Wakata is looking at the window there. This is full motion mode, and you can tell because of the sound of jet engines. In quiet mode, they can go to the cupola and they can look through at their model, and you can see an amazing model. Gee, why would you build the International Space Station out of a bunch of long, thin segments that can easily break at the joints? So there's their fairly realistic view of the rest of the International Space Station.
Hello, Rick.
Hello, Dermot. Welcome to the International Space Station.
Oh, it's nice to have you with us. Rick, thank you so much. When did you apply to join the astronaut program yourself?
Well, actually, you know, getting selected as an astronaut's not as easy as it sounds. I started applying many years ago, and it actually took me 9 years and 9 different applications before I was finally selected in 3 different interviews. Oh, absolutely. It went well beyond any expectations I had.
And Koichi, you're the commander of the ISS. Congratulations, the first Japanese commander. What does being commander actually mean?
Well, it's quite an honor and a big challenge for me, but I am humbled to take up this challenge. I'm so happy to be able to work with my very hardworking crewmates, Rick and Misha. And I think I got to see that I have a really talented and motivated crew. I got the easy part. Just to make sure that they're eating fine and they're sleeping fine and just having fun up here. And I need to make sure that we have good communication with the flight control team. It's a wonderful team all over the world. Yeah, I wish, but you know, we work together as an integrated team, and it's really a lot of fun to work with Rick and Misha.
And what's the reaction been like in Japan?
Actually, they really liked watching the change of command ceremony last Sunday, and I had a lot of feedback, and like to many international partners of the International Space Station program, to Japan it means a lot to have its own representative, to have a chance to command the International Space Station.
Now have a look at their feet. There's stabilization bars, blue stabilization bars. counterbalance the rotation. As he moves away from there, he moves forward. And once again, he hangs on to the bar on the side with his left hand to stabilize himself.
From the International Space Station. Hello, Katie.
Hello.
This is so cool, isn't it? Hey, Katie, I want to
welcome
ask
aboard
you a
the space
question.
station.
This is Leah. Look at this. Wow. Are you going to be okay, or? There's a delay, too, so we got to take that into consideration. Katie, can you hear me?
You know, we Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you. Oh, good.
Thing we do, we're weightless, and all the things we're doing it with are weightless as well. So you start off with that teeth brushing thing, and I have to say, you know, spitting, that's going to be a problem. So we swallow our toothpaste, and the day goes weightless from there.
And then what is your average work day? Is it like a real 8-hour day, or? And then what do you guys do? You sit around looking out the windows, or what do you guys do? This is what I want to know. That scare you?
I won't say they scare me, but I'll tell you that I take them very, very seriously in that we exercise, you know, about almost 2 hours a day, which I'll say I'm not disciplined enough to do down on the Earth. But I do it up here because the implications of not exercising are really having a tremendous amount of bone loss. And I have a 10-year-old, and I figure I still have a lot of running around to do when I get home.
Katie, I wanted to ask you, other than your family, your son, what do you, as a woman, what do you miss the most?
Jelly beans, but then how to eat these in space, this is truly challenging because as soon as I open this bag, all of these are going to want to come out. And so I'm going to have just a couple come out.
Japan, and that brings us to Koichi, who's in the Japanese lab Kibo. So Koichi, walk me through what you're working on in this lab.
Yeah, this is an experiment called Spheres. And these satellite robots are specifically designed to function in the microgravity. They contain the software that the scientists are testing.
At first, this looked like a full-motion scene to me, but on closer inspection, I think this is a suspended mode scene. When it's sped up, you can kind of see them swinging, and it has the same backdrop as the other suspended mode scenes. And then there's this weird part. Rick Mastracchio puts out his hand and he moves forward. Maybe he's using his feet to wedge himself forward somehow, but it doesn't look like it. The floor is smooth. His foot is behind that blue handle that's attached to the floor that he keeps both of his feet under and keeps shuffling back and forth on. He sticks his left hand out and then he just moves forward. He is Superman. That's how Superman moves forward. He sticks out his arm and he flies. Another aspect of the illusion of space travel is spacewalks. These are faked inside a swimming pool. It's a custom-built swimming pool, and that's a great way to fake zero gravity. About 6 months ago, in 2013, a gallon of water leaked into one of their spacesuits in a matter of seconds. NASA doesn't really have a proper explanation for how on earth this could have happened. There shouldn't be water leaking into someone's helmet and a person almost drowning in space. How can you drown in space? They now wear snorkels to make sure that they don't drown in space. How can this be happening? A snorkel in space? There could be some water in the porous plate sublimator. When they were on the moon, They supposedly had about a gallon of water, but that cooling system is supposed to be well away from their head. There really is no sane explanation for why a gallon of water would leak into someone's spacesuit, unless you realise the whole thing is faked inside a swimming pool. In this scene, you can see the Chinese spacewalk, and you can see a bubble coming up from the guy's suit. How do you have a bubble in space? Space is supposed to be a vacuum, not a swimming pool. But it's obviously just a swimming pool filled with water. Obviously, there would be some equipment that they could only fix from the outside, but a lot of these spacewalks, it seems like equipment they easily could have configured to be accessible from the inside of the International Space Station. It seems more like an excuse to get out and show their other space trick, which is the faking of spacewalks in a swimming pool. In this vid, you catch a glimpse of someone wearing a scuba tank. Scuba tanks in space? Snorkels and scuba tanks in space? They act like a spacewalk is just a walk in the park, like there's very little danger involved at all. They're looking through the spacesuits. Oh, here's a spacesuit, we're going to go for a spacewalk. As if there's no danger at all, like they don't care. They don't care. They don't act like they're in a life-threatening situation, like they could die at any second, even though they can. So you would think to preserve their life they would want to minimize the amount of spacewalking that they did. But there seems to be an abundance of equipment on the outside of the International Space Station that constantly requires repairing, which makes for a good TV spectacle and is inspired by movies like Sandra Bullock's Gravity. And after Gravity came out, they of course had to do another spacewalk to fix some emergency, some piece of equipment that their lives depend on that amazingly they can fix every time. But you know what? Thanks to the genius of the engineers at NASA, they employ snorkels in space now, so that should stop them from drowning.
Right, so the snorkel, as I mentioned, this is actually a part that we can change out on the spacesuit. It's part of a waterline vent tube assembly, which is actually what runs from the backpack of the suit, and it's what hooks up to the liquid cooling and ventilation garment that the crew members wear. So normally these tubes will be passing water that's providing cooling around the crew member's body. So some smart engineers on the ground were able to figure out, hey, it's a similar diameter to a snorkel that you have for scuba diving. So what if we're able to, each waterline vent tube assembly has 2 of these tubes. So by just sacrificing one of our spares on board, they were able to come up with a way to just snip off the ends and then file it so that it's not rough in the crew member's mouth, and then apply Velcro. We already have Velcro inside the suit, which is what holds the drink bag up to the front part of the suit. So they were able to come up with this ingenious idea to hold it in.
Well, I guess the unique experience is a really good way to describe it. There's one aspect, the part of being outside that is really similar to being in the NBL, the training facility, the neutral buoyancy lab, the big swimming pool we have at Johnson Space Center down in Houston. Everything looks the same in that swimming pool, but outside, there's a big Earth going by. There's sunsets and sunrises to kind of wake you up or brighten, kind of blind your eyesight, and so just the view is what's completely different. That's what takes your breath away when you're trying to get back to the business of doing your work, and amazingly enough, the Earth is just rotating by underneath you.
And, we talk about spacewalks, but it's a bit of a misnomer. It's more like space floating. You're really not out there walking. And I guess the best analogy I can tell everybody is if you could imagine yourself scuba diving in a suit of armor, that's about what spacewalking is like.
And the Wide Field Planetary Camera 2 is clear of the structure of the telescope, and now Foista will be maneuvered by Meg.
It's a Chinese spacewalk. A bubble rises in the pool. It's complete fraud. Here the helmet gets hit on the International Space Station, and a bubble rises into the pool. This spacewalk from NASA isn't even a month old yet, and here's a bubble taking an odd trajectory because it's in a water pool. It even curves because the water is it's not motionless, it's moving. And here on the International Space Station, they once even got caught with a scuba tank in space. It's ridiculous that they get away with this shit. What's even more ridiculous about them filming spacewalks in a water pool, and spacewalks are impossible, is that the women for the hoax perm their hair. Here she's in front of a blue screen, and the background is not moving. The cable is completely still. And in real life, there would be airflow in the space station. The space station would be making adjustments that would not stay fixated. It's just a screenshot. And they just put it in the background. It's blue screen. And her hair is permed for this ridiculous hoax. This is a video that I made about the absurdity with their hairdos. They perm their hair. It's ridiculous. Their hair stays fixated. The public doesn't notice that their hair is permed. And yeah, the women are completely ridiculous on the space station. In 0G, hair is moving through air. It behaves like hair moving through air. It does not stay fixated into position. And yet, when you watch them on the International Space Station and you look at their hair, it always stays in a particular position relative to their head, and it doesn't flop around naturally like it's supposed to. And here is Perm Lady Head. I mean, look at her. She looks like Medusa. She looks like she has fixated snakes coming out of her head. It's permed like that.
Here and be pretty relaxed. Everybody has a hand.
Here's another idiot. Her hair is completely fixated. It's a perm. It always springs back into that particular position. It's ludicrous. I mean, look at this idiot. She must be a Freemason or something. Because sometimes that's who they get to do these hoaxes. They're sworn to secrecy, and they're fucking pieces of shit.
Just 24 hours ago, the 6 crew members had an opportunity to conduct what now has been the traditional change of command ceremony. They gathered inside the Japanese Kibo module for that activity, in which Max Sarayev formally handed over the reins of the command of the International Space Station to Butch Wilmore. There were opening remarks from Reed Wiseman and Alexander Gerst. So for your viewing enjoyment, let's take a look at yesterday's change of command ceremony.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Expedition 41.
Now notice Clive Davis always holding his hand into a fist over fist. Now, in the Masonic world, that means time is up. His time has not come up yet. So who does he referring to when he holds his hands over his fist? Someone's time is up. It's Whitney.
Okay, welcome everybody to the Expedition 41-42 Change of Command. This is Reed Wiseman. I'm joined with Alex Gerst and Max Sarayev, and the three of us are heading out tomorrow. So we just wanted to kick it off by saying a few words. And for me personally, this is the most unique ship with the most amazing crew and the most incredible ground support that I've ever worked with. And it's been an honor and a privilege to spend 165 days up here. And with that said, I'm looking forward to heading home tomorrow with these two. And I'll hand it over to my German colleague, Dr. Alex Gerst.
Yeah, they say this is the most complex machine that humanity has ever built. Now, even after half a year on board,
event of this, and let me introduce a new commander of International Space Station, Captain Wilmer Butch.
Thank you so much.
Introduce a new commander of International Space Station, Captain Wilmer Butch.
All right, thank you, Max. Hey, I want to congratulate you on a great tenure as commander of this engineering marvel. It's nicely done, Max. And to the whole team here, thanks, guys. It's been a wonderful 2 months. We're going to miss you guys when you leave tomorrow. And for the team on Earth, it's an amazing, as Alex said, it's an amazing accomplishments day in and day out, things that takes place here. And you think about all the people literally around the globe working together for the common good of mankind. And I want to, like as they said, thank everyone as we go forward. And with that, we'll say increment 42 has begun. All right?
Congrats.
All right. Here we go.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you all.
Houston and Moscow. The crew of Expedition 28 has had the discussion about emergency procedures during the transition period that will exist from the change of command ceremony tonight until the hatch closing and official departure. Andre and his crew tomorrow. And it's been great flying with you. It's been great working with you. I am ready to accept command.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
So for the International Space Station program, all the international partners, thank you very much for giving me the keys to the family car. Thank you, Kevin. With great humility and pleasure, I accept command of the International Space Station. Thank you, sir.
There you go. Good luck.
Congratulations.
Congratulations on becoming the first Canadian commander of the International Space Station. We look forward to working with you as you take command and you lead the crew through increment 35.
Welcome to the end of increment 40. We've accomplished a lot. We've had a lot of fun. Hopefully everybody else had a lot of fun too. This was a team effort. We got together. We did it as a team. And of course, we actually had the easy part. You guys on the ground had the most difficult part. And it's come to an end. And so I'd like to hand over the command of the International Space Station to Maxim Sarayev.
Thank you very much and welcome to increment 41.
Houston and Moscow and all of the control centers around the world. From the crew here on board the International Space Station, after having served through Expedition 35, it is time to hand over the command of the spaceship to the Expedition 36 crew. So from this young Canadian kid's dreams to be realized to command a spaceship, on behalf of everybody at the Canadian Space Agency and the International Space Station program that trusted us to do our job right, para. And so I pass command of the International Space Station to Pavel Vladimirovich Vinogradov. Congratulations.
Наступил тот момент, когда мы
The moment has come
прощаться с
that we need to say goodbye
великолепным домом,
to our wonderful home,
прекрасной станцией,
this beautiful station
больше 5 месяцев.
where we spent over 5 months.
Я хочу сказать руководству
And I would like to transfer the command of this beautiful home, my space home, to my friend, the new space station commander, Fyodor Yurchikhin. Thank you very much, Pavel.
Спасибо, дружище.
Thank you, my great friend.
Expedition 38. Рик Мастракио, Коичи Ваката, Майкл Тюрин, Michael Hopkins, Sergei Rязанский, and Expedition 38 Commander Oleg Kotov. Welcome on board.
Again, hello everyone on the ground. So again, I'm really glad to pick up the station from my first commander, Fyodor Yurchikhin, and from his excellent crew. Thank you. ИЦУП Москвы официально
MCC Moscow.
принимаю командование 38.
I am taking over the command of Expedition 38. Welcome on board. Welcome Increment 38, and good luck to us in our work.
It's a great joy for me to be here with you today. For me, it has been a privilege and an honor to serve as commander of the space station and to work with such a gift crew as well as such dedicated ground support staff at all of the Mission Control Center. So, Gennady, it's your time to be commander. ISS. That's it.
Well done, Expedition 31, and congratulations, Expedition 32. It's a pleasure to work with all of you, and we look forward to many days and hours working with you, Expedition 32, and looking forward to congratulating our friends back down on the ground, Expedition 31.
Lots of things could go wrong. They're on the edge of death every second, yet they act like giddy children with gay abandon. Another curious thing is, take this piece of exercise equipment. They've deliberately detached it from the wall so that it's not directly attached to the side of the International Space Station, so that when they exercise, when they do their movements, the movements don't translate to the station and don't move the station around. That's a wonderful concept. I like that idea. You wouldn't want the station to be moving around a lot. The problem is, this piece of equipment is the only thing that they isolate from the International Space Station. Every other movement is translated to the station. They don't care. They don't bother to isolate the station from the people moving around inside. They grab these blue handles, which are all over the station. They often have to stabilize themselves on these blue handles. There seems to be so much motion in the International Space Station. If you take Chris Hadfield, he's moving through the station at breakneck speed, and then he stops himself on the wall. That motion is going to be translated to the station. The station is very big, it weighs many tons, but in space there's really nothing to stop these motions from moving the position or the orientation of the space station. The International Space Station uses several large gyroscopes for attitude control to maintain its proper orientation and so on. And there's a reaction control system consisting of rockets as backup, supposedly. We can only presume that the rocket-based reaction control system isn't employed very often, as they don't talk about it, given that there are so many people inside moving around, moving gear around all the time. And every time the solar panels were moved, every time the Soyuz docked with it, there would be motions impinging on the station, and this would move the station. So what you'd need is a system of rockets on the outside burning fuel in order to stop the International Space Station from misaligning, from moving out of place. When it comes to satellites and things in orbit, you don't want them moving around a lot. The International Space Station changes in altitude somewhat, supposedly. It goes up and down. They supposedly bring up 3 tons of water every year. That's hard to believe, but let's take that at face value. But they never talk about huge amounts of rocket fuel. But even without the rockets, all of these motions of the astronauts and the solar panels moving around would put tremendous strains on the joints, and they're not flexible joints. Having a huge airproof flexible joint of that size would be an incredible engineering feat. They don't have them anyway. There's not supposed to be any relative motion between sections. The International Space Station was made piecemeal. They started off with one section and then they added another section. It consists of a bunch of tubular sections which are joined together. It's an ad hoc design. Here are a few scenes from the tour of the International Space Station that they take you on. And I noticed that there's no airlock between sections. This means if there's an air leak in one section, they will be affected in all sections. They're quite likely to all die. You could wear the spacesuit. That would work for a few hours until you had to eat. And then you'd have to take the spacesuit off and you'd be exposed to the vacuum of space and you'd be dead. The porous plate sublimator only lasts for a few hours anyway. Sometimes they're tethered. Do they have tether points on the inside of the International Space Station? Not likely. They don't really design it with life in mind. You could argue that they all scramble into the Soyuz and try and get back to Earth in the event of an air leak. Well, that would be very odd. They would have to completely change and recalculate all of the re-entry parameters if you're going to cram all 11 people or however many people they have on there. They have many people on the station at the same time. You also couldn't cram that many people, all 10 or 11 of them, into the one Soyuz at the same time. They only ever have one emergency Soyuz escape capsule. You couldn't cram them all in. It's very odd that they're up there in this life-threatening situation where an air leak could happen at any time and they could all die, and there's not even enough lifeboats for them to make it back to Earth. Having no airlock in between sections is very odd. The more sections they add to the International Space Station, the more dangerous it becomes, and yet they don't care. They just add as many as they like.
Check that out. Sun sets, space station gets brighter. This is just a bunch of bogus garbage. You can only see it if you speed it up. You won't notice it in real time. Look. What could be, if the sun is setting behind, what could be brightening the space station? And notice how they changed that scene too. It cuts. That's because this is bogus garbage. How is the space station, supposed space station, visible after the sun has set behind a supposed round Earth horizon? How? Look at that. Sun sets, space station gets brighter. But notice the sun has been disappearing, supposedly. But yet you can still see this. What's shining from here to reflect light off? The supposed sun. You cannot see the sun from free space. You need the Earth's atmosphere to see the sun and the stars. How they are able to see this is beyond me. The sun is setting. Watch this here, how it gets dark. But in the other video it was still visible. And there was no sun. But I know many will say that the sun was out of the picture. It's just garbage. And you're being lied to. And NASA cannot hide it anymore. Look how fake this is. Look at that. Well, you would figure in their lie they got it right here. Gone. Sun sets, space station not visible. Look at that. You can't, there it's visible, there it's invisible. Yeah, I know. It's at an angle. That's what all the naysayers are going to say. Wake up, people. Wake up.
Another curious aspect is how they deal with water. There's no proper shower, so they must be incredibly uncomfortable and stinky the whole time, yet they have huge smiles plastered on their face. They can't have a proper shower. Nevertheless, they must use some water in order to clean themselves, in order to clean their hair. What do they do with this water? Supposedly they have suction for when they urinate, but aside from that, there are no special vacuum sinks. In other words, there's water floating around all over the International Space Station. Now, none of the surfaces are waterproof. It's just expected that you keep the water confined to one area of the International Space Station, away from the delicate electronic equipment and so on. And what do you do with this water, especially dirty water? Because that's what water does. It absorbs dirt and particles. They would accumulate so much filthy water. The mantra, of course, is recycling. They're supposed to recycle everything. Wow, they have some amazing recycling technologies on the International Space Station that they can't demonstrate anywhere else. I mean, it's a super water recycler that's compact enough to fit inside the International Space Station. Imagine how much maintenance such a system would require. You'd have to bring up so many filters and chemicals, and things would be breaking down and you'd have to repair it, but you don't have the tools to do it. So there's another curious, strange aspect of the International Space Station which endangers their lives and could kill them. But they don't care. They always have huge smiles on their face, like they're having a really good time, even though they could die at any second. Another curious aspect is that humans emit dust with time. Their skin dies and drops off. That's what makes for most dust inside a person's house. There'd be so much dust building up on the International Space Station, and yet you never see them go around with a dust buster, with a small vacuum cleaner sucking things up. What do they do with the dust? Well, supposedly there's a trash disposal thing in the form of a re-entry vehicle which strangely burns up on re-entry, even though the ones with humans inside supposedly survive re-entry. That's a very curious contradiction, but they have a trash disposal capsule that they put their trash into, but they never talk about the dust. They never talk about the solid waste from the supposed space-age sewage system that they have. That's another strange thing, is supposedly they have a sewage system. I don't know how they cram it into the International Space Station. Perhaps it's in the walls of the station, but they never talk about the smell. It'd be impossible to avoid the smell of a sewage system in the walls of the International Space Station because they're trapped inside this tin can. It's completely sealed from the vacuum of space. You could have any number of super filters and try and get rid of the smell. It wouldn't work. They never talk about bringing bacteria up in order to replenish the bacteria that's in the sewage system. They never talk about bringing all of the extra oxygen up that you'd need to let the bacteria process the sewage. In fact, what they must do is simply store their feces in the cupboard. They would have to put on a pair of plastic gloves and grab their feces and put it in the closet. There's no sewage system on there. They can pretend that there's a sewage system. There's no sewage system. So in other words, They're living with their own feces, and the smell must be incredible. Yet they always have huge smiles plastered on their face, like the International Space Station is the best place in the world to be. But it would be awful. What about their laundry? Well, Chris Hadfield admits there's too much water taken for laundry. They don't do laundry. They just throw their clothes in the trash when they're done with them.
Laundry piles up. Is there a way to clean clothes in space?
No, it takes a lot of water, of course, a washing machine and a dryer. We don't have anything like that. So we just wear our clothes till they wear out, and then you throw them in the trash, and the trash is like a little unmanned resupply ship. And when it gets full of trash, then we close the hatch, and it undocks and backs away and falls down into the atmosphere. So your dirty laundry actually gets incinerated in the atmosphere. And so,
wait a minute, you guys on the space station are throwing your underwear out, your dirty underwear out the window, and it's raining down on us?
So take this woman, Sunita Williams, has supposedly been on the station for 200 days. She's never had a proper shower in that time. She's never laundered her clothes. She just wears her clothes for, I don't know, a couple of weeks, a month, and then throws them out. In other words, she stinks. She's horrible. She's clammy. She's disgusting.
Living on the International Space Station, you might be 6 months without a real shower. Essentially, you have a sponge bath is what you do every day. And yeah, you do get pretty sweaty because you're working out. But surprisingly enough, when the shuttle crew came to pick me up, was one of my first questions, do I smell? And they said I didn't smell, and they said my hair didn't look greasy, so I was pretty happy with that.
And yet they all act like they're so happy to be on the International Space Station. It seems mandatory to smile if you're on the International Space Station. I guess when you're doing a hoax, you have to have a big smile plastered on your face, because that's what distracts people. Now check this video out. The whole video is about a minute long. I said 45 seconds before was the maximum for full motion mode. It may be more like a minute that they can do this full motion zero gravity mode, because then the airplane finishes its parabolic trajectory. It has to dip down for a short period of time. There's double the gravity. Anyway, have a look at the end of this, and there's a strange motion to the center. Take a look at the way it moves. It kind of skips out of her control a couple of times. First it dips down and then up a little bit, and then at the end it goes up a little bit, and she kind of looks a bit embarrassed, like she's been caught putting her hands in the cookie jar. Oops, I hope you didn't see that. No, we didn't see, Katie. Just keep the beautiful smile on your face, and that'll distract us from the hoax. They supposedly urinate into these funnels. How do they keep it clean? How do they stop it from being encrusted with dried urine? You can't use water to clean it. You could, but you'd be wasting a precious resource, and then there'd be dirty urine-filled water floating around the cabin instead of ordinary water. So to summarize, they're living with their own excrement, their feces and their urine. They build the International Space Station out of long, thin segments. There's all kinds of motions being translated to the International Space Station through these blue handles everywhere. They could spring a leak between segments easily. There's no airlock between segments. They don't do laundry or have showers, and they're incredibly uncomfortable the whole time. They don't have access to proper medical treatment or facilities. They have to routinely go outside to fix equipment because they like to put stuff on the outside of the International Space Station that can only be fixed from the outside. So in short, this International Space Station is a suicidal hellhole. It's an awful place to visit. Every second their life is in danger and they could easily die, yet nothing ever goes wrong that they can't easily cope with and fix given the incredibly limited set of tools they must have up there. And they act like they don't care. The International Space Station is the worst place in the world to be, and yet they act like it's the best place you could be.
Space, the final frontier. Man has been travelling here since the 60s. All of them brave voyagers, highly trained astronauts, not everyday people, until now. Our mission, to take ordinary members of the public, put them through a rigorous training regime on an isolated Russian military base, and then blast them off into space. Or so they'll think. Unbeknownst to them, they'll never actually leave UK soil. The scene is set. The countdown to launch has begun. Will the contestants even want to go into space? And if they do, will they fall for the biggest practical joke in television history? We're about to find out in Space Cadets. Hello and welcome to Space Cadets. It's Space Gym, but not as you know it. So what are we trying to achieve here? We have a two-part mission statement. Part one, we must convince a group of people that a large field a stone's throw from Ipswich is in fact a Russian space training facility. Part two, we must convince this same group of people we're going to put in a shuttle, blast them into space for 5 days, where they'll make history as Britain's first televised space tourists, when in fact they will be in this high-tech shuttle simulator based on genuine NASA blueprints in this aircraft hangar here in that same field near Ipswich. Now, if they last the full 5-day mission without rumbling us, they'll each walk away with a bundle of cash. This is the most elaborate and expensive hoax in British TV history. So what could possibly go wrong?
Hello, and welcome to the International Space Station. I'm Katie Coleman, a NASA astronaut, MIT graduate from 1983, and this is my world.
Fake ass shit. Yeah, you're still in space. Great flip.
I'm amazing. I mean, this is even better than I dreamed. I look out the window and it's all so unbelievable.
Well, when we look out the window, Emerson, the thing that we see and notice the most is planet Earth. Some of our best windows face the Earth, and it's very blue.
Hey, look, this pen is floating. How crazy is that?
You just laid your ass off to your wife and your mother.
You don't have to shout, Raj. It's not like I'm an astronaut floating around in outer space. Oh, wait, I am.
So, is it everything you hoped it would be?
It's better. I wake up every morning and I just can't believe I'm on this incredible adventure.
Well, most fun is actually waking up every single morning and realizing that I am still here on the space station. I mean, I grew up as a scientist, and then I was really excited about trying to be an astronaut, became an astronaut, but still part of you just doesn't believe that you'd really get to live in space.
Weightless. Free orbit. Just where are we? You mean this thing is working? We're... No, sir. Not me. Nobody ever told me this was practical. Turn this thing around, you hear? Take me back. I ain't going. That's just to look at. I'm sick.
Take one of these pills. It'll settle your stomach.